These are extreme parasitic feeders.
Bedbugs. Forget all the myths you've heard about bedbugs because these crazy parasites can be found in many more places than you would care to know. Bedbugs have survived eons, so you know they're made of metal. It's believed they were once cave dwellers and would feast on bats' blood. Over time, they learned to survive by latching onto humans. When we think of bedbugs, we think of someone who maybe never washes their bedding or that you only find them in hotels. Wrong. They are everywhere. Your own bed, hospitals, buses, movie theaters, basically everywhere people are, so are bedbugs. Just washing your bedding isn't enough to get rid of them or prevent them. You need to scrub your mattress down with a stiff brush, especially in the seams where the eggs tend to settle. Vacuum your bed and surroundings often. Ever wondered why a bite from a bedbug doesn't wake people up? That's because the saliva of a bedbug contains an anesthetic, promoting blood flow at the bite site, also making a quick in and out for the lucky bedbug. Tsetse Fly. This parasite is one that is feared by many in mid-continental Africa, and for good reason. They are active spreaders of disease. These obligate parasites survive by drinking the blood of vertebrate animals. They belong to the housefly family, and there are 23 species in total, and they live in open woody areas.
They've existed in this form on the planet for millions of years, and their method of sucking blood from their unsuspecting prey is pretty gross. They have tiny serrations inside their mouth that saw into the skin and then suck out the blood.
This parasite also transmits protozoan parasites, causing a potentially fatal disease called the sleeping sickness. If treatment is not sought, it is fatal. Some reports suggest that male tsetse flies attack humans while the females prefer large animals. Others believe that the fly bites humans accidentally and we're not their primary target. Radiation castration is being explored as an option to eradicate this parasite in African countries. Pea crab. This tiny critter calls the inside of oysters, clams, and mussels home. Called the pea crabs because of their size, these crustaceans are still being studied and not too much is known about them. What we do know is that they have a parasitic relationship with their hosts by feeding on the plankton that is part of the oysters, clams, and mussels diet. Usually things are fine with this situation, except when the pea crab feeds on the mucus strings that bring the food into the host's mouth. Once those are nibbled away, the host has no way of feeding and will die. In order to get inside the host, the pea crab rubs along the edge of the shellfish for hours until it finally opens and lets the crab in. Cookie cutter shark. Under normal circumstances, a name like cookie cutter shark would make you think of something small and harmless, but given our topic, rest assured it is anything but. It was named cookie cutter shark because of the cookie cutter shaped bite wounds it would leave behind on its prey. The teeth of the cookie cutter shark are unique and are short inside its coned snout. These sharks attach themselves to a tuna, stingray, or another shark, not excluding whales, and suction their lips onto them.
The shark then spins around. Think of a can opener, removing chunks of the prey's flesh. The result is a wound that looks like it's been cut out with a cookie cutter.
Oxpecker. This one is open to debate, so you can let me know what you think later. Oxpeckers are those sweet birds that are endemic to sub-Saharan Africa, and they gorge on insects. That doesn't sound too parasitic, does it? However, it's how and where they get their insects that places them on this list. Oxpeckers sit on the backs of large mammals and eat the parasites off of them. Where the contention about the parasitic nature of this animal comes in is that when you hear what we've just said, you'd say it was more of a symbiotic relationship than anything else. But here's the snag. The oxpecker's favorite food is blood, not the tick or botfly larvae it's removing. It only eats those because they're crammed with blood. If there are no more ticks to eat, the oxpecker will peck holes into the animal and feed directly on their blood, inviting more parasites to settle on the animal. So now you can see why we might class the oxpecker as a parasitic feeder. Mistletoe. Across the globe, you'll find over 1,000 species of mistletoe, which is described as a hemi-parasite. This plant has gained fame through a festive tradition at Christmas time, when there are two people that are caught underneath the mistletoe and a kiss must follow. Kind of ironic that we love this plant because usually anything classed as a parasite is linked to disease and suffering, but not mistletoe, right? Mistletoe grows on several types of host trees, stunting the growth of the tree, but it often kills the tree too. Mistletoe seems to favor apple trees. The seeds of mistletoe are passed from infected trees by birds. When the seed first germinates, it's not parasitic. It's once the seed's embryo grows towards the trunk of the trees that the problem starts. The root tip of the embryo penetrates the bark of the tree and heads for conducive tissue. It takes many years before the tree succumbs to the mistletoe. In the interim, the mistletoe relies on photosynthesis to propagate. Once the roots reach the conducive tissue, then the parasitic nature of the plant emerges. Tapeworms. Before you think this is not something you can get, think again. Anyone can get a tapeworm, and most people won't even be aware that they have it. The only signs might be anemia or a vitamin B12 deficiency and maybe nausea. It's usually from eating undercooked or raw meat that people get tapeworms. Where tapeworms get scary is when someone accidentally consumes tapeworm eggs that were contracted through improper sanitation. The larval tapeworm hatch inside the body and then start roaming in search of a hiding place. Sometimes they latch onto muscle or brain tissue, causing an infection called cysticercosis. It's not common in the USA, but it's said to be one of the top 5 neglected parasitic infections that require attention. There is a myth that says placing a bowl of milk at your mouth will draw out the tapeworm. Suffice to say, it doesn't work, and you're far better seeking medical attention if you think you have a tapeworm. Rafflesia arnoldi. You'll have to head deep into the jungles of Southeast Asia to encounter this rare parasitic plant that only flowers for a few days at a time. The plant has no leaves and sports huge leathery petals. The plant stinks, smelling like rotting meat, hence the name corpse flower.
These are not the flowers you'll pop into a bouquet, because one flower weighs in the region of 22 pounds.
First discovered in 1818, the Rafflesia takes an age to flower. It initially takes 18 months for a small brown bud to appear. Then it's another 6 to 9 months before it matures to the size of a cabbage. The leaves then slowly open, making the total length of time for a single flower to bloom around 2 years and 3 months. And after all that time, the flower only stays open for 5 to 7 days. Head louse. Just the mention of lice has me scratching my head. And if you've ever had it before, you'll know how uncomfortable and gross it is and what a mission they are to get rid of. Guys are lucky. They can just shave their head, but it gets more complicated with longer hair. Here's the nitty-gritty. Lice have been around since forever, and evidence of head lice has been found on mummies. It's passed along from head to head, as lice cannot jump or fly from one head to another. Head lice are yellowish, whitish insects, about the same size as a sesame seed. Nits are their eggs, which you need to remove to stop the spread of lice. It's often said that lice like dirty hair, but that's just not true. They're not fussy and will head to clean, dirty, short, long, black, blonde, curly, or straight hair. This parasite feeds on the blood it suctions up from our scalp and can live for up to 30 days while laying 8 eggs a day. Around 2 million people at any given time are infected with lice in the UK. Vampire bats. Stories of vampires far preceded the discovery of vampire bats, which is why these bloodthirsty parasites have been aptly named after them. They were first described in 1810 and again in 1839 by Darwin. The connection between bat and vampire was made famous in 1897 when Bram Stoker's Dracula was released. With their lust for blood, vampire bats are parasites, and they also have parasites. Vampire bats shear hair and feathers away with their teeth and then use sharp incisors to pierce into the skin and suck the blood out from a wound. They have specialized grooves on their lips and tongues which help siphon up the blood.
Vampire bats have a special activator in their saliva called plasminogen, which prevents blood from clotting. They consume an ounce of blood at every meal, but during a 20 to 30 minute feeding session, they'll consume about half their body weight in blood. If you had to choose one of these parasitic creatures to encounter, which would it be, and why? Let me know in the comments below.
1. Lampreys. It's a face only a mother could love. In fact, I'm not even sure that it has a face. I know that it at least has a mouth and teeth. Lots of teeth. Sea lampreys are parasitic fish found in the northern and western Atlantic Ocean. They're often misidentified as lamprey eels, but that is incorrect. They mostly feed off lake trout and other bony fish by using its disc-shaped suction cup mouth to latch onto the fish. Along with its rings of sharp, spiky teeth, the fish has no chance of escape. Once latched on, the lamprey uses its raspy tongue to lick away at the flesh of the fish to reach the blood and bodily fluids inside. If there was ever an award for the creepiest parasite, I think it goes to the lamprey.
If you're new here, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload.